Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, friends. How are you all today? Thank you all for visiting with us for Bible study. Welcome to Bible study with Andre and Betty. Again, thank you all for those of you who have subscribed, and if you would push the like button when you listen, that would help me a lot. So we're continuing our studies today from the book of Genesis, and we're in chapter 33. And what we will be looking at is 20 years later, referring to the time that Jacob ran from Esau because Esau had planned to kill him, and his mother Rebekah and Isaac had sent Jacob to Haran to find a wife. So 20 years later, after working for his uncle Laban, God has directed him to go back to the land of Canaan. And in today's lesson, we'll see the meeting of Esau and Jacob. And again, this is 20 years plus later. And so beginning in Genesis chapter 33, verse 1. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. Now, in last week's lesson, we saw Jacob preparing to meet Esau by sending him gifts of all of what Jacob had accumulated. Well, today they meet face to face. And so when Jacob lifted up his eyes and he saw Esau, and it says in verse 1, continuing verse 1, when he saw 400 men, and he, Jacob, divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaids. So he's separating our children from their mothers, and their children are put in a group by themselves. Verse 2. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost in the front, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. So if Esau would kill the first group, then the second group would escape. If he killed the first two groups, then Rachel and Joseph would be spared. So he's devising a way to protect them in the way that he knows how. And notice that God had told Jacob in chapter 32 that his name would no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. Yet the first verse of chapter 33, it goes back to the name Jacob. That's because Jacob is his natural name and Israel is his spiritual name. So he said the handmaidens and their children first, Leah and her children second, and Rachel and Joseph later, behind. Verse 3. And he passed over before them, so he led the way and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. And remember, they're twin brothers, but Esau came out first. Verse 4. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept together. So Esau is letting Jacob know that there's peace from him, and he's no longer running after Jacob to hurt him. But yet Jacob is still going to try to appease him. Verse 5. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women. That is, Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children, and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, Jacob said, The children which God hath graciously given to thy servant. So they began conversating with each other. Verse 6. Then the handmaidens came near, and they and their children, and they bowed themselves. Now, if you look in Scripture, whenever people are worshiping God, they bow down their head, and we bow down our head and our heart to worship God. But also to bow down to another person is an act of respect. So Jacob bowed down 7 times. It was the custom at that time. And then the handmaidens bowed down to Esau. It's not out of worship, but out of respect. So we go back to verse 7. And Leah also and her children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near and Rachel. And the order, the way this is written, the order, Leah and her children, the handmaiden and their children, the handmaid and Leah is written first, but here with Joseph and Rachel, Joseph's name come first, because Rachel is nearing her death, and it will be through Joseph that the nation of Israel continue into bringing Jesus into the world, according to how the genealogy runs from from Abraham to Jesus. And so it says, and after came Joseph near and Rachel. And the order in which words are written is very important. And they, that is Rachel and Joseph, bowed themselves. And he said, Esau said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And that's back in chapter 32 when Abraham separated the different groups of animals to present to Esau. So reading verse 8 again, and he said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And Jacob said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord, lowercase l, letting it know that he's not talking about the Lord of the Bible, the God of the Bible. And so he said that I might find grace in the sight of my Lord or my brother. Verse 9. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself. Keep your gift. I don't need it. Verse 10. And Jacob said, No, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. So if you do this, take this gift, then I'll know that God is pleased, and that because of your response to me. It will give me peace about our meeting together again after 20 years. Verse 11. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. So Esau finally accepted the gift. Verse 12. And he said, let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee, or I'll go ahead of you. Verse 13. And he said unto him, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and the herds with young are with me. And if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. So you go ahead and we'll follow you. Verse 14. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly according as the cattle that goeth before me and the children are able to endure, until I come unto my Lord, unto Seir. And Seir is the homeland of Esau, but it's also in Canaan. Verse 15. And Esau said, let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And Jacob said, what needeth it? I don't need them to stay with me. Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So he's remembering what he did to Esau, and he's trying to make things right between them, even though Esau has settled the issue about killing him by the way he greeted him when they met together after these 20 years. Verse 16. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. Verse 17. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth and built him an house, or a place to stay, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth, which means booths. Verse 18. And Jacob came to Shalem, letting you know that he didn't stay in Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padam Aram and pitched his tent before the city. Verse 19. And he bought a parcel of a field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of silver. And he erected there an altar and called it El Elohi Israel, which means God, the God of Israel. And this place that Jacob bought is not the place where Abraham brought the land to bury Sarah, but it's in the same location in Canaan, but at this time in Joshua chapter 24, verse 32, we'll see that this is the land that Jacob bought for 100 pieces of silver, and he's gonna bequeath that land to his son Joseph and his sons as he's nearing the end of his life. So, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for sharing with us, and we'll see you next week. You all have a great day and a great week. Bye.